Ugh. Mother Gothel. Ugh, I can't stand that woman. I hate her so good. But why?
The writers successfully created Mother Gothel to be a source of tension. In everything positive she does, there's always the underlying motive of getting what she wants, even if it's not immediately evident to the audience.
The antagonist exists to push the protagonists to their limits, or to heighten the emotional impact of the crisis, and that's kind of a heavy load to bear. In its simplest form, the villain's impact is contingent upon how effective he or she is at preventing the protagonists from getting their goals.
That being said, the characteristics embedded in the antagonist, as well as the tools they use to achieve their own goals, are of equal importance.
And when the goals of those two characters are at odds with each other, the tension is heightened even more.
However, this takes time and thought to create. It's clear that the writers set out to create this tension-filled relationship between Mother Gothel and Rapunzel.
But what is it about Mama G that just makes her so dastardly?
In her article about creating successful villains, Laura Di Silverio points out a couple things writers can do to make antagonists worthy of your story. So, here we go!
Remember, antagonists are people too.
A common misstep that a lot of stories fall into is using cheap archetypes to define a villain.
This generally makes them feel underdeveloped or distant from the protagonist and the crisis.
In other words, by giving the bad guy more depth, the crisis feels more crisis-y. For instance, we don't perceive Mother Gothel as inherently evil. Vain, sure. Gluttonous, maybe. But not necessarily evil.
When we are introduced to her character in the prologue, we see that she's simply using the flower's power to keep herself from aging. There are no consequences for other people except for she's only keeping the flower power for herself. In the following scene, she attempts to cut Rapunzel's hair, and it's only after that attempt fails that she kidnaps her.
This subtle sequence is very important because it shows Morgoth is not always out to harm others. She's simply out to gain for herself. Throughout the course of this film, we see this illustrated time and time again. Rapunzel lives a life devoid of rich experiences. However, she does not necessarily live a life devoid of pleasure.
This is the kind of stuff that Laura's talking about. By allowing Mother Gothel to be kind at times, the moments when she isn't feel even more sinister in nature.
Ms. Di Silverio makes two other points that we're going to combine into one, and they are as follows.
Keep the tension strong if the antagonist is a friend or a loved one, and make the antagonist as capable as the protagonist.
Don't nerf the bad guy.
But how the heck does this apply to Tangled?
So glad you asked. On the surface, Mother Gothel is not your typical fairy tale villain, because she has limitations.
She is a mere mortal.
She has no powers of her own to speak of, so contextually in the story, that's interesting in contrast to Rapunzel.
After Flynn agrees to take Rapunzel on her journey to see the lights, we see how easily she descends from the tower.
It is at this point that we learn that the tower doesn't exist to keep Rapunzel in, so much as it exists to keep the world out.
So why does she stay?
It is because Mother Gothel has spent the better portion of 17 years undermining Rapunzel's confidence, and this is illustrated in the Mother Knows Best song.
This song is one line after another that strengthen the mental chains on Rapunzel.
And later in the film, when Mother Gothel finds Rapunzel and Flynn in the woods by the campfire, she doesn't insist that Rapunzel come with her.
She does what all our moms do, and guilt trips her.
And lastly, when Rapunzel is about to be attacked by thugs, Mama G just comes in and saves the day. And this only serves to endear her to Rapunzel and strengthen that trust. Mom's in for the long con.
And this is precisely how the writers in Tangled both keep the tension strong and create a capable antagonist. Mother Gothel's strength is in her cunning. And even though Rapunzel has had the upper hand the entire time, she's unable to see it because her mother has been manipulating her with mind games for virtually her entire life.
Scene after scene in this film shows that she's resourceful and bright. And oh yeah, she has magical, glowing hair healing powers. As the story unfolds, Gothel gets more and more frantic as she desperately seeks to keep Rapunzel as a resource. This internal conflict helps the story feel balanced and only adds to the crisis.
Mother Gothel's limitations make her a more well-rounded villain. After this movie was over, I looked at Adam and I thought, is it possible that Mother Gothel grew to love Rapunzel and that's why she didn't want to let her go?
We both agreed that that was unlikely. And with the help of a few scenes, we dismissed that idea altogether.
However, the fact that I asked that question in the first place speaks to the depth they were able to embed in Mother Gothel as a character. And there you have it, one supremely antagonistic lady.
The important takeaway for us is that villains are important. A crisis of a film should bring out the most in our hero, and the antagonist should do likewise.
Don't shortchange the villain, because if you do, the whole story will suffer.
In our last episode, we hit on how giving the supporting cast just enough time to serve the plot is imperative.
We don't want to crowd the narrative, but certain characters call for more time.
By creating a villain with dialectical features,
good, bad, kind, cruel,
you'll be doing your story a huge favor.
And we will thank you for it.
That we will.
So, glad you guys like the new format. It's a thing. It's easier for us. Like by
That's
a
not
lot.
why we're doing it. We're doing it for you.
It's
But
also
it's a
because
lot
it's
easier for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram's probably worth following because I post on the daily.
Before we get there, we would love to know what you guys think in the comments. Mother Gothel is a pretty interesting villain.
Told you we'd get there.
There's even some stuff I feel like we didn't cover yet.
Yeah,
But
there's more.
we'd love to hear anything you guys have to say. Like he said, follow us on Instagram. It'll probably be worth it. Tumblr as well.
Yeah.
Twitter. We're really like
The activity.
We do so much on
it knows
Twitter.
no bounds.
Yeah, like,
we're insane.
We'll post one more thing on Twitter because of this video. Not
And
because
that's
it does it
already to our
automatically.
excessive amount of tweets that we put
Right,
out.
right.
So
Have a good week, guys.